Hello and welcome to this video cast for subscribers to davidicke.com. Last week I was talking about something I've been writing about for a long time, what I refer to as the technologically generated sub-reality. And what I mean by that is a energetic field. You could think of it as a massive global cloud that is operating within the frequency band of human energetic mind and brain activity. And therefore, because of the frequency compatibility, that information source, that technologically generated information source, can be attached, connected to human thought and emotional processes, and thus feed information into the human individual and collective mind that dictates perceptions, thoughts, and emotions. Now, I know at first hearing, people will find that fantastic and ridiculous and, what else is on? But it's true. And I've been researching this a very long time. And to understand the depth of the human control system and where it is planned to go through what we call the transhumanist agenda, you have to open your mind to many things, and you have to go deep into the realms of the nature of reality. And this week I've had a long email from a gentleman called Dante Kalidas. And what he's saying here is that he has personal experience, personal knowledge of the sort of thing I'm talking about, although he gives it a different name. And I'll just read you some of the information from the email so you can see how in context it is with what I've been saying all these years about this technologically generated sub-reality designed to become the reality perception source of the human individual and collective mind. He says that he's already tried to get this out through the alternative media, but no one has touched it. And he says, so AI, artificial intelligence, and what I know and how I know it. I speak of the government's New World Order putting an astral net in place, David, for monitoring the masses all across the world. Now, that's a very good description of it, what I'm talking about with this technologically generated sub-reality, an astral net. Because for those who haven't come across the term astral, it is a term for a level of energetic reality that is beyond human sight, which is not saying much because, as I've pointed out many times, if you take what mainstream science says about the reality that we can actually visually experience, then the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005%, some say a bit more but not much, of what mainstream science says exists in the entirety of what we call existence. Actually, it's far bigger than that. And therefore the frequency band of the electromagnetic spectrum is far smaller than even they're saying in relation to what actually exists. But when you think of that, 0.005% of what exists is the electromagnetic spectrum. This is mainstream science. And visible light, what science calls visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can decode into a reality we can see, is a fraction of the 0.005%. Now, when you consider those almost laughable um, statistics in relation to what we can perceive, then you can see that almost everything that exists in existence we can't see. But there are other levels which technology can pick up that um, are also affecting our perceptions of reality and our thoughts and emotions. Because, okay, I'm thinking now, okay? You can see the outward expression of those thoughts in my opinions. But what about the activity of thought? I'm thinking now. So, can you see what I'm thinking? No. Because that activity, that energetic activity, that electrical activity, is taking place on another level beyond human sight, where almost everything goes on. So, this astral level is another level of reality that is beyond what we call the physical world. But because as I went into last week, the body is a holographic projection, like the whole of this reality we're experiencing, of energetic fields. It's at the energetic field level beyond human sight. Some people call it the auric field, but that's just one level of it. It's at that level that you can access the thought and emotional processes, which then become human perception and behavior. And this astral level is part of that energetic field beyond human sight. And so, through that astral level, you can access on an energetic level the human thought and emotional processes, and you can feed into those thought and emotional processes those thoughts and emotional responses that you choose. And if you do that, you are dictating the thoughts, perceptions, and emotions of either the individual you're targeting or a whole race of people, the whole human race, eventually. And thus you are controlling everyone and everything through that means. So this email goes on about the astral net. Think Minority Report, says the film, and you start to get the picture. Of course, the film is very off, as this will involve remote neuro monitoring and artificial intelligence, which is already used in conjunction with remote neural monitoring, or RNM. To begin with, what is commonly known as remote neural monitoring involves artificial intelligence. He goes on, Google stock is way up. You might remember in last week's video cast and in my books, I emphasize the absolutely crucial foundation role in all of this, the whole transhumanist agenda of Google. Google stock, he says, is way up because anyone on the inside knows that they are developing artificial intelligence and it is the future. If you are thinking longer than 20 years, people are thinking, that kind of period, well, it's way off, he says. And my estimate is based on how long this has been tested and obvious plans for the elite. Google will be huge. Anyone on the inside knows this. It is the future. The stocks are high priced for Google. And he goes on. There are thousands upon thousands of people dealing with remote neural monitoring across the world, thus an international agreement and conspiracy. Then we ask, why? It is about mapping people's brainwaves, all of their thoughts and thinkings and feelings, a myriad of things here. It is all being collected by agents and agencies across the world. And with this technology and going into a central database. For what purpose? The fact that all peoples across the spectrum are being attacked and affected with this technology points to a collection of a wide spectrum of information in regards to thoughts and feelings of people, and all across the board and all across the world. They are collecting all possible thoughts and feelings, cataloguing these, and each of these has a numeric print number, which with this technology can be used for duplicating said feelings and thoughts. The numeric value given to these are identity prints for reduplicating with this technology and for knowing what is being viewed in the first place. And behind all of it, artificial intelligence does all of the organizing and work in regards to identifying what is being thought and felt. So in the simplest terms, you download thoughts and feelings, all of which have a particular frequency, and then you feed those frequencies back to the population, thus stimulating those same thoughts and emotions, and thus dictating the behavior and perceptions of the population. Because, as I have outlined in the books and did so in the video cast last week, that we are living in a holographic simulation, a holographic version of a, if you like, computer simulation, computer game, interactive, then these computer terms become very, very relevant to what is going on and how it's being done. The email says the elite want to set up a net, national security agency in one sense, on an astral level. The elite have every intention of doing this, and sooner than you think. Actually, it's already going on and being built and expanded. Everything in regards to cell phones, smart televisions, pharmaceuticals, etc., is all the smaller stuff and a distraction. This has to be the case because they already can control and manipulate human consciousness, dreams, thoughts, and feelings with remote neural monitoring. And you know, I've talked, as I did last week, about anything with smart in front of it is designed to communicate with everything else with smart in front of it, smart meters, smart TVs, smart phones, etc. But that is one level of it. It's not the actual core. The core of it is designed to be this cloud or this astral net, this technologically generated sub-reality of which these smart technologies are a part, but they're not it. They're a part of it, that's all. So deep does it go. So the question is, when does remote neural monitoring, RNM, stop being tested on individuals and implemented on a wide scale and for population control? Well, it's moving in that direction all the time. Thought is energy and astral. So will be this monitoring and control. It is the real level and intended goal. National Security Agency is a smokescreen and outdated to leave the public a step behind. Very interesting point. You know, all this stuff with the Snowden revelations and so many other revelations about the surveillance programs of the National Security Agency in the United States, not just in the United States, but globally. That is true, yes, but it's a smokescreen, as the writer points out, because, and in the sense of, it's pulling people into a much lower understanding and perception of the scale of human surveillance and control. So you get pulled into the level that this is about surveillance, monitoring the internet, monitoring the emails, monitoring phone. Yes, it is, absolutely. But that's just small deal in terms of the kind of stuff that I'm talking about and Dante is talking about here. in relation to the control and the um, dictating through the means I'm talking about of human thought, emotion, and thus behavior. He goes on that this is the ultimate reality in regards to controlling consciousness, absolutely, and consciousness of the masses. Artificial intelligence will be behind it all. A global AI network in which every person is hacked and spied upon, absolutely right, and even manipulated with this technology if need be, very much like the Matrix. Perhaps that is the real story behind the film. So, to jump ahead for a moment, he says, this is for a world government, as it's all centralized and across all countries. So, what is the government doing? What the government's doing is trying to set up a net in regards to controlling and monitoring people, and on an astral level, a thought level. They are quite literally preparing for a net in the future, and not too far away either, as he points out. In fact, I think some of it already exists, in which people are monitored by their thoughts and feelings, which is, and with this technology and for control, they are instituting and centralizing a database in which AI will be monitoring everything. Think of the machines in the Matrix movies. It will be monitoring the airwaves of people's thoughts. Thus, films like Minority Report have a seed of truth to them, so does The Matrix for that matter. But as with what I've just said about the National Security Agency surveillance, Minority Report is actually just small deal compared with the level of control and perception dictatorship that we're talking about. He says that RNM, remote neural monitoring, is a smaller compartmentalized part of the bigger picture. Governments have given this technology to agents all over the world, are experimenting with people for collecting a database on all possibilities in regards to thoughts, feelings, you name it. It is all being documented and categorized, and at the end of the day, all this info is being centralized. It is field testing and a collecting of data for a database involving AI, and a numerical values being assigned to a particular thoughts and feelings are all being catalogued for a world database for a collective world net. And he goes on that it's all being done now for the future, and it has been going on for a very long time. In fact, this has all increased over the years. Absolutely, it has. He actually talks about a particular agent in Germany, who he says is out of control, an egotistical psychopath, a miniature version of the elite who's been given access to use this technology, and being done in a very, very horrific manner. And he goes on, people in the alternative media do not begin to see the end goal here, as they do not spend any real time thinking about this, and because their lives are not directly affected by this technology. My life and my family's is another story. And, you know, this is what I was also saying in the video cast last week, that if the alternative media is going to understand the depth and scale of what's going on, thus what we need to do to turn it around, then they've got to open their minds big time to things beyond their current belief system. And he goes on to say this: agencies murder public figures with this technology. I call this emotional engineering. Agencies and the elite are monitoring the masses as a whole, monitoring group consciousness when they do these events. The difference in stock prices, sales of newspapers, you name it, they are monitoring the effects of MK Ultra being done on a large scale. A large shock and trauma is being done to the world population, and the subsequent results and impact. Now, I've written in the books over the years about a document which came to light detailing, well, it was basically a a manual for people within this network who are being shown and taught how to mass manipulate and mind control the population. It goes under the name of Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And in that document, it actually describes how they are constantly creating shocks in the world, be they wars or economic shocks like the crash of 2008 and other things, and monitoring the reaction to them. Because it's very simple. If you can start to create a cause and effect understanding of data in a situation, an event, and what happens when you press enter, in effect, the human response collectively and individually, then you start to build up a deep understanding of, if you want a certain human response, what you have to do to glean that response, cause and effect. And he says they are monitoring the reaction of the masses using mathematics, signs, and waves, and for being able to fine-tune artificial intelligence in regards to manipulating populations and the masses. Interesting, he says here, an example, Robin Williams. Yes, the agents I deal with here were giving Robin Williams innuendos for a period of weeks. I wondered what it was all about, and then he died. And he says, when agents with this technology hear about a murder that is going to be done with this technology, it creates a buzz throughout the agency grapevine amongst those within this illegal program who have this technology RNM. And he says he can prove this. Now, I'm not saying, because I don't know if that is true about Robin Williams, but what is certainly true is that if you can access the thought and emotional processes of someone, then you can dictate their mental and emotional state, and thus dictate the behavior that comes from that mental and emotional state. And if anyone, goes, oh, well, go back to sleep, because this is what is going on. I'm not saying it happened in his case. The email says that. But could it have happened? Absolutely right. It could have happened with this technology. And he says that this technology was used in the murder of, and is used in the murder of public media figures. Thus, witnesses dying of instant cancer before they go to court, and emotional engineering. And I got into specific events, he says, with this agent in Germany and her officers, so I know what the result is. My concern, he says, is that no one will recognize the danger here and that no one will cover this subject. Well, I've certainly been trying to do that for a very long time, and I urge the alternative media to start looking in detail at this, because this is the agenda above all other agendas for human control, to directly control emotions, thoughts, and so behavior through this astral net, or technologically generated sub-reality that I've been talking about. Interestingly, this week, another story, this was on TruthStream Media. City Council votes to ban mind control weapon